Okay, we're back. Let me double check my stream real quick. Okay, I think we're back. Took a bit longer of a break than I expected, but the severe threat and the tornado threat died down for a little bit. I was monitoring the storms here as they've come across the Florida Panhandle. They're still in the tornado watch that's left for southeast Alabama, southwest Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. And watching as these storms came across, there's some rotations embedded out over the Gulf of Mexico. And we talked about this in the first live stream this morning. The way the coastline is in the Florida Panhandle, it's a lot skinnier in the Florida Panhandle up here by Pensacola and Destin, but then it takes a southern dive down towards Panama City and Apalachicola. The line segment that's coming across here, more of the tornadic circulations are embedded in this southern part of the line that's been offshore for quite a while now. That's starting to change a little bit here in the near term, and we just had issued just a minute or two ago a tornado warning for Santa Rosa Beach and Freeport and Miramar Beach here in Florida for one of these segments that is coming across off the Gulf of Mexico. So backing out, we actually had probably maybe dual water spouts just offshore. You can see one circulation here, one circulation down here, and then here's the coastline, Miramar Beach, Santa Rosa Beach area. Those have worked their way ashore, and kind of the southern one took over. You can see it gets a little brighter here, and then traverses up, moving in a northeastern direction as it crosses onto the beach right here. And it's still hanging out right in this area here. So between Miramar Beach and Santa Rosa Beach, coming up towards Grosh, this is your circulation right here. Also ones to watch, there's some circulation offshore, some high winds offshore, but even further down here, there's some circulation here as well. So we're gonna have to watch these as they make their way north and east. And again, they're going to be colliding eventually here with the coastline between Miramar Beach, Destin, and Panama City Beach, and further down towards Mexico Beach, and probably even down towards Port St. Joe. So ahead of that, there is the larger severe thunderstorm warning that's been continuing across the Gulf of Mexico, across the Gulf Coast this afternoon, everywhere from Ozark and Enterprise, Alabama, down towards Dothan, and then over towards Chipley, Alford in Florida, and then even down towards Mexico Beach is in a severe thunderstorm warning, including Panama City Beach, Rosemary Beach, Lynn Haven, Santa Rosa Beach. It's for this complex of thunderstorms that's making its way across Florida. Particularly, the northern part of this looks a bit messier and not as organized as it did a few hours ago. So we'll have to see if severe thunderstorms warning continue there. But particularly south of I-10, that's where the most potent part of the storm is. And we do have that system coming across the Santa Rosa Beach area right now. Let's get a look at this in the CC. And I don't see anything. Luckily, there's no debris ball or anything coming across this area right now. We'll have to see if anything changes here, but it'd be this area right in here along I-98 or Route 98 between Gulf Pines and Santa Rosa Beach. And luckily not seeing anything at the moment. But we're talking about US Highway 98, County Highway 30A, and then up towards Grosh, over towards Dawn Bishop Road, some of these roads. I gotta zoom in, really see them there. But that's your area of rotation here right now that's coming ashore. And luckily this is basically just south of Grosh between Miramar Beach and Santa Rosa Beach. Not seeing any CC drop at the moment, so that's good. A good sign that there's not at least a strong tornado on the ground. There could very well be a water spout that was kicking up water, and we're not going to see that read any differently. The correlation coefficient measures meteorological targets, and it's going to pick up water for the most part as a meteorological target. Further down, to be aware of is there is some rotation down here off the coast of Santa Rosa Beach and off Grayton Beach. We'll see if that holds together. And then there are other points of rotation, probably some water spouts ongoing. This would be decently southwest. About 23 to 24 miles southwest of Rosemary Beach. We'll have to watch and make sure those do not hold together. They have been pretty persistent over the last few minutes, so that's a bit concerning. And then there's further rotation points further south and west. But the main one we're concerned about right now is this one here between Santa Rosa Beach, Miramar Beach, and Grosh. This is headed generally up along the bay here, eventually over towards Fluffy Landing. Bunker is in the warning, as well as Freeport. This is all in Florida, in the Florida Panhandle. And Santa Rosa Beach. Still radar indicated. Just want to check here. And this is moving pretty slowly, so different than some of the storms earlier today. This whole system has slowed down a little bit. This one in particular is moving northeast at 15, radar indicated rotation. So this may go on for a bit here. I can track this out. We can track out this area of rotation at 15 miles per hour. It's going to continue to be in the Santa Rosa Beach area here between Grosh and the bay, and then up towards Fluffy Landing if it holds together in about 40 minutes, about 30 to 40 minutes. But putting this into so you can see how it tightened up actually right before it came ashore. Probably had a water spout or even two water spouts offshore. The one kind of took over, and it's now been the one that's maintained the strength as it has now come onshore between Miramar Beach and Grosh and Santa Rosa Beach. But watching this area of some broad rotation, now coming up towards Grayton Beach and also towards Santa Rosa Beach. We'll have to see if that tightens up a bit more. And still have this area of rotation sitting over Santa Rosa Beach and Grosh. A 98, 30A, and some of these neighborhood roads right in here. Last scan, it almost jogged a little more east. So it may still be, if there is a water spout slash tornado, it may be hanging out right on. It almost kind of looks like it came up and then the rotation has turned a little bit, somewhat like that. So if there is one, we may not have much of a CC drop because it would be right down in here, right along the beach. So that's a little interesting, and that's tricky for weather service radar ops to see. Even if we don't have a tornado, we have some stronger winds that are also going to be coming ashore. So those are going to be hitting the areas between Rosemary Beach and Santa Rosa Beach most immediately, and then eventually up towards the Freeport area. While we're here, let's just glance at the line. Not much in rotation anymore like there was a couple hours ago on the northern end of this line. Still a tornado watch, so be cautious if you're in the area around Enterprise, Dothan, over towards Donaldsonville, but nothing immediate over there. And luckily we're decently close to the radar site here on the Florida Panhandle, so we're getting a decent look at this cell here as it comes ashore. And again, a tornado warning right now, still just radar indicated. This is for southwestern Walton County in the Florida Panhandle. And it's a cell capable of producing a tornado moving northeast at 15 near Santa Rosa Beach. So again, we're looking in this area here between Miramar Beach, Santa Rosa Beach, and Grosh. Right along the water here. And just checking. I wasn't sure if we were going to get a stream again today, but with the increase in watching these cells here as they get closer to the Florida Panhandle coast and seeing some of the couplets offshore, it was worth hopping on, and then especially once there was a tornado warning issued, seeing what happened with that circulation or even dual circulations offshore and then now coming ashore, it was worth checking those out. Should be getting another scan here in just a minute, and we'll see if this holds together, and we'll see kind of which direction it's moving. But either way, if you're in a tornado warning from Miramar Beach down to Santa Rosa Beach, over towards Point Washington, Bunker, and Fluffy Landing and Freeport, all in the tornado warning. So please be mindful of this. The last two scans have a little something here in the CC that could indicate some sand or something getting kicked up, but then it drops off even slower, so it could just be some contamination, but it is decently located over that circulation. But it was just two scans. You can see nothing here, and the circulation's right here, so right here. And then one scan later, pretty much located with the little circulation. And then one scan later, and still something right there. But the good news is it does appear to be broadening out. It's not continuing to tighten up. So if there was something, it could have been a weak water spout, or could still be a weak water spout that came ashore. It was definitely tighter a couple scans back, especially offshore when there's two of them. But it was still decently tight right in here before it came ashore. And now it's weakened some. So that's good news for this area. It's still just kind of hanging out right in this area by Grosh and Santa Rosa Beach. It's not making its way towards Freeport at probably even the quickness that it was originally estimated at. But it's these things right down in here that are offshore right now that are potential issues, especially for the coastal communities between Santa Rosa Beach, between Destin and Port St. Joe in the next couple hours. This is all headed in the general direction towards Rosemary Beach, Panama City, Lynn Haven, Mexico Beach, and Port St. Joe. So right now, still watching this circulation. We'll get another scan here in a minute. It's just kind of riding along the beach here. Right by 98 and 30A still here in Santa Rosa Beach. So we should get a CC update here in a minute too. They've trimmed the warning a little bit. Still just radar indicated. I don't really see that CC drop continued, so that could have just been some contamination, or there could have been, again, a little weak water spout that came ashore, kicked up some sand right in this area south of 98 and along 30A. Cypress Passage, a little street there. So don't know for sure. The CC didn't continue past those like 2 or 3 scans. So that's good news. Good news is we don't see a big debris ball or anything right now on this area of rotation. Watching some higher winds out here towards Rosemary Beach. That's going to be a potential issue here. Still just radar indicated. And it's definitely broadened quite a bit as it's come towards the center point of Santa Rosa Beach. So let's take a second here. Go back. This would be the next one here that's held together for a little bit. This is offshore still. I think when we checked on it last, it was about 24 miles. Now it's about 17 and a half away from Rosemary Beach. So that is a area rotation that is worth watching as it eventually comes towards the Florida Panhandle. There's a special marine warning. In addition to the severe thunderstorm warnings, there's a special marine warning out for high winds and water spouts as well. There's more areas of rotation you can see back in here. But the immediate one that we were worried about here by Santa Rosa Beach, it's definitely elongated now, so that's a good sign. Still some pretty hefty winds in here. You can see it's still kind of rotating, but it's much more broad than it was earlier. Here you have some greens and reds, and they're decently close. They're not super bright, but they're decently close in a fairly small area, versus putting the frames ahead. Now it's more of this arc along here, and they're not super bright or super close, but they're still trying. It's trying to rotate, but it's a lot less than it was earlier. If it did be in this area here, actually right over Santa Rosa Beach, and not seeing a CC drop or anything of significance in the CC, so that's a good sign right now. We can take a peek at reflectivity and see if we can catch anything. And actually the strongest part of the reflectivity is out ahead of this. So I think the rotation is now behind a lot of the energy. which is now coming across Point Washington, Seagrove Beach right now with high winds, lightning and heavy rain up towards Bunker. Fluffy Landing is in the storm pretty good, as well as Freeport. And the further up, severe thunderstorm warnings along I-10 towards Chipley and out as far north as Dothan. Looks like Enterprise now trimmed back. Ozark in Alabama trimmed back from the warning. So the severe storm warning goes as far as the Dothan area. And then south along US Highway 231 all the way down to Mexico Beach. So a pretty hefty size severe thunderstorm warning. An even larger, I think, marine warning. But you can see the next one we're going to have to really pay attention on is this dog leg right here. You can see it comes up and then goes out, and there's a rotation point right in there, and that one's that one that's held together about 17.5 miles southwest of Rosemary Beach. That's the next one that we really have to pay attention to is this area right in here. Beyond that, there's another one. Now this is like pretty far out into the Gulf of Mexico, so we'll have to see if it holds together. But there's its dog leg, somewhat like that, with the circulation sitting back in here. We're getting farther from the radar site too, but those are the threats here for the near term. Beyond the loose circulation over Santa Rosa Beach right now. They may continue this warning, and I wonder if it was a little longer, they may have dropped it. But this is the one that I'm getting a little more concerned about as it heads towards the beach. It's held together, I think, since we started the stream at least, which is a sign that it's a healthy circulation. We can get better looks of it as it comes a little closer to shore and comes closer to the radar site as well. In the meantime, let's take a look at this again. So you can see again here, as it came across Santa Rosa Beach, a little tighter rotation. Now it's really broadened out and almost, it's stayed hung back behind the strongest part of the storm, which is now over Point Washington and Bunker and Seaside. So I'm not seeing a giant threat here, but still under a tornado warning, so take your tornado precautions, be in your safe space here. Just a little longer in Santa Rosa Beach, Grayton Beach, Point Washington, Bunker, Fluffy Landing, and Freeport. That tornadic threat hasn't really come up this way, but still you're in some heavy rain, lightning, and thunderstorms, so good to stay away from windows as this is kind of broadened out and held back in the rain. Here's that next one to watch out for, about 17 miles off the shore. And then the next one back from that, we can that's about 23 miles to that between the two rotation points. But there's that one. So one area of concern is about 35 miles. The more immediate one is now about 13 miles from Rosemary Beach. If it holds on like the one here did, I would anticipate another tornado warning coming out, just like they did for the Santa Rosa Beach circulation. That one had like 2 rotation points out to the Gulf of Mexico, and then it came on shore and luckily weakened quite significantly. We'll go back to CC, make sure there's nothing hiding back in here, but I don't see anything that's concerning that much. It's more of a shear line, and it's back away from the strongest part of the storm. which is a good sign. There's still some broad rotation in here. You can kind of see the greens interacting with the reds in this general area here along 98 between Santa Rosa Beach, Grayton Beach, and Point Washington. But again, no real CC drop or anything up in this area here. This one's still holding together. You can see it out here in the Gulf of Mexico. It's the next one to watch as it gets closer to the coastline, about 10 to 13 miles offshore. And it's held together scan after scan. There it is there. Kind of weakens a bit and then it continues. But it's holding its own. And then the next dog leg down is further out. And then there's even more further out into the Gulf of Mexico. But if there is a tornado, it would be over the Santa Rosa Beach area between kind of 98 and 30A, between Santa Rosa Beach, Grayton Beach, and Point Washington. Checking the line again, I don't see anything at least tornadically imminent. That part of the line is definitely weakened since it's come ashore. I can see it in the reflectivity too. And you can see how some of the deepest parts of the storm have raced out ahead of where that circulation was. Like this bowing segment here in the reflectivity. How it's gone much faster than that circulation. Here's this circulation still holding out over the open water, about 10 miles southwest of Rosemary Beach, so that'll be the next one to watch. We've had a couple tornadoes today, nothing recently that's been confirmed. The last confirmed tornadoes we had on radar and then eventually I think confirmed by local law enforcement has been in the Slidell area in Louisiana. Then there were several other tornado warnings through coastal Mississippi, coastal Alabama near the Mobile area, and near the Pensacola area. I haven't seen any confirmed tornado reports out of that, and we didn't see any, big debris signatures on radar in those either. We're still just talking about the same area, but it's definitely weakened in the reflectivity. The strongest part of the storm is now closing in between Bunker, Rosemary Beach, Seagroves Beach, and Point Washington here. This area here along 98. Not much in the way of rotation here. It's almost trying to form maybe another calm ahead, and then the trailing part of the line. So I think that's what's going on here, as you can kind of see this mass of storms up by Freeport. And above that, above I-10, the storms have gotten a lot less organized. Up towards Dothan and Ozark and Enterprise. can see again, here's a circulation here, and then here's a circulation here. And as they've come on shore, they've definitely weakened. And really this one kind of like stalled out. As this one surged ahead and also broadened. And now they're just a bit of a shear line right here. But it's away from that heaviest part of the storm. So interesting one. Here's this one though. It's still here, and we're getting a bit better look at it as it comes up closer to the radar site and also closer to the shoreline. So it's the next one that's going to be headed on shore, and again we're not really going to see anything in the CC because it's just water out there. Still not seeing any CC drops in this tornado warned area, so that's a good sign. As the area of rotation is really broad and really weak. But you can see the wind, the heavier winds out here, pushing towards Rosemary Beach. Now probably east of Bunker. Headed towards Seminole Hills, Pine Log, Bruce. Those are going to be your heaviest winds. Maybe a couple minutes for Seminole Hills area. And maybe just a few minutes for Rosemary Beach. Hopefully no one's on the beaches, because this is going to be a sand blaster as it comes down the beach. Still being warned outside the tornado warning, it's still being warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds. Tornado possible, and maybe even some small hail. And then here's the circulation now. Just about 10 miles from shore. So this is the next one to watch in its little dog leg right here, as it's generally moving northeast as the line moves generally to the east. Good news is they dropped the tornado warning, so they saw what we're seeing here is really no threat of tornadic activity, so that's a good sign. Just now a severe thunderstorm warning is in effect from Santa Rosa Beach up to the areas north and east of Dothan by Haleburg, and then down to the Chattahoochee area, just west of Chattahoochee along I-10, and then all the way down to the Mexico Beach area is this severe thunderstorm warning, a large severe thunderstorm warning. It's been a constant warning as it's come across the Gulf Coast. We picked it up when it was north of the New Orleans area with some tornado warnings, and then it's been a constant issuance of these severe thunderstorm warnings out ahead of this line with embedded tornado circulations. But again, the line's looking a lot less healthy up north of I-10, and now even along I-10 it's looking a lot less healthy, although some of this could be some contamination due to the radar site right here. This is that one to watch. You can see it on, you can see the dog leg on the reflectivity, and you can also see it here in the velocity. But you can see these little notches in here. That's what we're watching. And then there's another one back further, right in this area here. And there's likely even more that we can't fully see offshore. probably one down in this area. But all these have potential as they come generally to the north and east towards this area here in the Florida Panhandle from Apalachicola, Port St. Joe, and Panama City Beach area. That's going to be the threat is high winds and heavy rain and lightning. So severe thunderstorm criteria with embedded circulations, particularly the coastal communities for the embedded circulations. Like Santa Rosa Beach, once they come on shore, it tends to weaken up, especially in the environment that we're in at the moment here, where the storm system is. The earlier SPC forecast for longer track tornadoes was back in the Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana areas. The threat for the long and especially like supercellular tornadoes goes down a little bit here in the Tallahassee area and the rest of this warning or watch box. So we're really watching for these QLCS convective system tornadoes. Watching this notch feature right here, about 10 miles offshore. And if that continues to hold together, it'll be somewhere between Rosemary Beach and Panama City Beach along Highway 98, somewhere in this area here, if that does hold together. And then we'll see what the Weather Service does with that. Just heavy rain and thunderstorms between Santa Rosa and Rosemary Beach. Right now, about to get the worst of it here, as there's a little bit of a bow in here. Headed towards Santa Rosa Beach. And then, yeah, a lot less organized now up in this area. There's still some flood warnings back towards New Orleans, Gulfport, and Biloxi. It's still raining back there. There's still some rain and thunderstorms. Luckily, finally clearing out of the New Orleans area. But still around Biloxi and points east, Moss Point, Pascagoula in Mississippi, and then Dauphin Island, Mobile, down to Gulf Shores and Pensacola. Still have some moderate to heavy rain and embedded thunderstorms. The strongest storms have stayed offshore, and luckily because they're training in more of a eastern direction, those may also impact the southern part of Apalachicola area, Port St. Joe. This area here that juts out into the Gulf of Mexico is a lot more prone to these storms as they move east. So those are a potential threat here for the part of the Florida Panhandle in this area. And then we're watching those embedded circulations getting closer and closer to shore now. We can keep another look on these. So it's still down in here. And you can see it over the last few scans. It's really been there since the radar scans go back here. And then right up in this area now. So we'll see, it's a bit broader than it was a few scans ago, so that's a good sign. But either way, beyond the circulation potential, there's heavy rain and winds impacting the Rosemary Beach along Highway 98 towards Santa Rosa Beach, Grayton Beach, and then up towards Freeport and Bunker. Fluffy Landing, starting to get on the back end of it now. Bunker still in the mess here. But yeah, this is the strongest part of this line right now is likely between Bunker and Rosemary Beach. You can see it kind of arcing out like this, and then you can also see it in the velocity. Not quite as pronounced as it was earlier in the western Florida Panhandle. And then here's this circulation where we've been watching. The tornado threat in the Santa Rosa Beach area has ended. No tornado warning in effect for these areas, just the large severe thunderstorm warning and special marine warning. But here's this little circulation right in here. And we'll see if it continues to hold together as it gets closer and closer to the Sunnyside and Rosemary Beach area. Now maybe about 7 miles. And then there's further circulations further back that are ones to watch later in the afternoon and evening as they push towards the coastline of the Florida Panhandle. There's ones even further back in here. So we'll see what the trend is here. We'll follow these storms as they go through Rosemary Beach, Panama City Beach area. Looks like we may have another stream tomorrow. Not only is severe weather possible in Florida, but later in the afternoon tomorrow, as the upper level low, that's part of the reason why there's severe weather today, lifts up into the Great Lakes. There's decent severe weather potential. Some tornadoes, not quite as high of a risk as earlier today, but some tornadoes are possible, as well as high winds and hail up into the Ohio Valley, particularly Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, and western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area. So we'll likely have a stream tomorrow afternoon covering that, especially if there's a bit of tornado coverage, but also severe thunderstorms. Looks like might be pretty broad in coverage in that area. If there's just 1 or 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, then we probably won't go live, but it's looking like it'll be another severe weather day tomorrow, with probably multiple severe thunderstorm warnings and possibly multiple tornado warnings. So yeah, here's this other circulation in its dog leg. And then here's this one right here in its position. And you can see these in the reflectivity, as well as you can see them in the velocity. And a lot of times they're even easier to see in the velocity than the reflectivity. This one actually in particular is a pretty rough angle. This one is a little less of a dog leg, so it's easier to see in the velocity scans. Can't tell with CC, can't tell if there's anything going on because it's just water out here. But those circulations would be somewhere in this area. And then this one is up here in about this area. And generally, again, moving to the north and east over the Gulf of Mexico right now. But let's focus in on this one a little bit, and then we'll follow and see what the Weather Service does. As the other thing this line has had, in addition to the severe thunderstorm warnings, is it's been pretty consistent to have flash flood warnings along with it. So there is a large flash flood warning for Walton County, Washington County, essentially all the counties here in the central Florida Panhandle, between Crestview and Destin and the Chattahoochee area, essentially down to Santa Rosa Beach, and then up towards the Dothan area south of Enterprise in Alabama, the southern corner of Alabama here, the southeastern corner. Alright, we're getting a lot closer here. And the circulation is generally holding together. It's a little weaker than it was a few scans ago. But it'll be interesting to see what they do, if they continue a warning like they did for the Santa Rosa Beach one, or if they just let it come ashore and see what happens. As it came ashore in Santa Rosa Beach, it weakened significantly, that rotation point. So it'll be interesting to see here what they do with it. But area rotation right in this area. And it'd be somewhere right in this area. You can kind of see it's along the leading edge of the line of storms. So we'll go back to reflectivity for a minute and see. You can see the notching effect in here. Maybe a little bit here, but then the one we're really watching is this one right in here. And you can see its notch somewhat like that. Maybe another one right in here. Something like that. And then there's that. The other one is off, just off screen that way. Yeah, back in here. Now this is still 20 or 30 miles offshore. So if it comes ashore, it would be in the general direction of the Panama City Beach area. It's about 35 miles offshore. That point of circulation. The more immediate one is the one over here by Rosemary Beach. At the very least, it's going to be a gusty wind threat that's coming up just south of Rosemary Beach towards Sunnyside, Rosemary Beach, Laird, West Bay, and maybe even down into the Panama City Beach area along 98. Alright, we can continue to see there's kind of two notching features in here. There's one here, and then one about there. Generally making their way north and east towards Rosemary Beach, towards Sunnyside. You can see the coastline right along there, basically. That was a really bad line. Coastline's right about there, and then you can see Highway 98 is right in that area. The forward progress on a lot of this line up here has somewhat slowed. Yeah, this area is going to be continuing to get a heavy rain threat, and you can see there's kind of rounds of rain built in the Dothan area, over towards Donaldson, Chattahoochee, all the way back towards Chipley and Enterprise, and then beyond that there's even a larger shield of moderate to heavy rain stretching back really across southern Alabama from Montgomery and I-85 south through I-65 to Mobile area. And then, yeah, back to our, I guess, waterspout threat. That's the ones I see. Maybe another one even offshore down here. We're watching the line here. The strongest part is over open water at the moment, but it's closing in on the Florida Panhandle with heavy rain, high winds, and embedded circulation. Once again, as this gets closer to Panama City Beach, reminder, outside of any tornado possible, you're in line for 60-mile-an-hour winds. So a big hazard either way, whether you're in tornado warning or not. And you can see these little notch features right in here. That one that's on the northern side is the one that we've been really watching, that held together for a good, 23 miles down into this area here. And now we're talking probably just a couple miles offshore. Maybe not even. Good news is the two notches have somewhat broadened a bit into more of a weak rotation point. They haven't tightened, at least on this last scan. But they are going to get a tornado warning. So here's another tornado warning. This one is for northwestern Bay County in the Panhandle of Florida and south central Walton County. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located 9 miles west of Panama City Beach, moving northeast at 30. So they are going to warn this area of circulation that we've been watching for, probably really since we were watching the first warning, but also watching those embedded circulations out to sea. So we've been tracking this for a little while here, and it is producing a tornado warning. It's tight enough where it's the Weather Service is going to warn this area, and it's a radar indicated tornado 9 miles west of Panama City Beach, so near Rosemary Beach. We can use this and see. Yeah, that's the one they're warning about. So if you're in the Panama City Beach area, you're in that severe thunderstorm warning. Lower Grand Lagoon, Upper Grand Lagoon, Pretty Bayou, Lynn Haven, you're in the severe thunderstorm warning, so you have a few minutes to get into sturdy shelter, because all these storms, regardless of a tornado threat, are headed your way. And now this line is really starting to bow out as it heads towards Panama City again. So we're probably going to get an increase in the severe wind threat as this storm cluster heads towards Panama City. But beyond that, within that, right near Rosemary Beach is where our tornado threat is. And in this warning here for Rosemary Beach, Sunnyside, Laird, West Bay, Seminole Hills, Pine Log, and maybe as far right now as Crystal Lake and just south of Ebro. So this is an area warned for tornado up along 98 and Route 79 towards Ebro. That area is your area to watch. Pretty much coming on shore right now. We can watch the CC. So here's your couplet here. It held together for quite a ways out to sea, and then now it's coming on shore right in the Rosemary Beach Sunnyside area. Again, no CC drop, so that's good. If this holds together or intensifies, it would be coming up towards the Laird area in general. Watching this area in here. along 98 between Sunnyside and Rosemary Beach. In general, headed towards Laird, Seminole Hills, West Bay. In a motion somewhat like that. So not really seeing any CC drop at the moment. We'll see a scan or two if we can see a trend line. Ooh, it's starting to wrap up a little tighter now. So the last one that came ashore over Santa Rosa Beach was not as impressive after it moved on shore. This one here is a bit tighter, right between Rosemary Beach and Sunnyside. Phillips Inlet, looks like it's in that area of Route 98, Route 30, and Phillips Inlet. This area here, and does look a little more impressive than the last one did. Gulf Resort Beach, Florida Beach. Just outside of the warning is Florida Beach, but this is Sunnyside Gulf Resort Beach, West Bay, Laird, up towards Seminole Hills and Pine Log if it holds together. There's now a new severe thunderstorm warning for tornado possible and 60-mile-an-hour winds, just extending that warning. And then the next one's to watch. We're going to do this all over again. This is what happened when we were watching the Santa Rosa Beach rotation. We were watching this rotation, which is now continued on here. Now we're watching this rotation, and then the next one down, and the one after that. As we get a little closer to the radar site, we can start to see these. These could be headed up towards the Panama City area. So these are going to be ones we're watching the next round. More immediately, though, Rosemary Beach, Sunnyside, Laird. This area is under the gun for a tornado-warned storm. Radar indicated. And it's in this area between Rosemary Beach and Sunnyside, right over Phillips Inlet. This is your area of highest rotation. These are moving so quick, it'll be interesting to see the next radar scan. Probably up towards Laird now, if it's held intact with the line of storms. And then high winds south of this. These high winds are going to head towards Sunnyside and Panama City Beach. So yeah, we're moving a little bit further north. Somewhat right in here. Moving towards Laird. Eventually towards Seminole Hills. West Bay, also in the warning. This one's a bit more impressive looking than the last one that came ashore near Santa Rosa Beach. So this one, West Bay, Seminole Hills, Laird, and Pine Log need to be paying attention to this one. So does Crystal Lake and Abro. Even though Crystal Lake and Abro are just away from the warning, Crystal Lake is right on it, and Abro is like a couple miles north of it. But if you have interest along 79 out of the beach and 98 towards West Bay and then up towards Abro, that is your warning area right now. And waiting on new scan there. Not seeing any CC drop again. but this has maintained most of its lifespan over the water, so it wouldn't shock me not to see a CC drop. Even right here, it's crossed the beach a little bit, but it's still in an inlet. So we'll see what happens once it gets a little more into the Florida Panhandle, a little more densely populated or densely forested area. But you can see those circulations. At one point we had kind of two dog legs. The one has dominated that and kind of taken over. This one weakened a little bit. But you can see it here as it comes ashore. Received a tornado warning. Okay, new scan came in. And it's starting to broaden out as well, similar to the last one. So came ashore right in this area between Rosemary Beach and Sunnyside. No CC drop, so that's a good sign. And then now it's up in this area here by Laird. And not seeing a CC drop either. But it's in this area here west of Laird. Just west of Laird is where what's left of this rotation is. Headed up towards Seminole Hills, Laird, and Pine Log eventually if it holds together or continues to wrap up. Looking further back, there's more back in here, out to sea in the Gulf of Mexico. Probably another one there, and then one down in here. So holding together, those next ones would be sliding north and east towards the Panama City area. But we're watching this tornado warning storm near Laird and Seminole Hills. Eventually, if it holds together, making its way towards Pine Log and West Bay are in the warning right now. The new severe thunderstorm watch has trimmed the northern, or the warning. The new severe thunderstorm warning has trimmed this area that we saw earlier is a lot messier north of I-10 and now gone sub-severe, so that's good. The areas here towards Donaldsonville, Dothan, and Ozark and Enterprise still under the gun for some flood threat, as there's training thunderstorms and heavy rain and moderate rain still back quite a ways behind the original line of thunderstorms. But at least the severe threat has gone down somewhat significantly. There is a tornado watch still for the southern southwest corner of Alabama and southwest corner of Georgia up towards Albany. Watching some strong storms up towards Albany, but those are non-severe, not seeing rotation. And same way with this area here between Dothan and Bainbridge, now non-severe. So really the severe segment of this line is in this area south of I-10, around the Panama City Beach area. And then further out to sea, there's other potential severe weather and circulations. This one's particularly strong at the moment. They tend to have this fleeting aspect though. They'll strengthen and fade in a couple scans. So they can be hard to track sometimes. One probably in here. The one that's on shore right now with the tornado warning, we actually tracked for quite a while, about 25 miles out to sea. That one held together pretty consistently, and it's held together better than the one that came ashore earlier for the tornado warning. This is an area of rotation up by Laird and Seminole Hills. It's going west of West Bay, and it's gotten a lot more broad, so that's a good thing. But it's making its way up towards Laird, towards Seminole Hills. And now even a little bit broader. Still some heavy winds, high winds in here. Still just radar indicated tornado. So a good sign we didn't get any confirmation, but somewhat still holding together. As it comes up near Laird and Seminole Hills. If it continues to hold together, Seminole Hills is next in line, and then Pine Log would be the next area that this rotation is headed towards. Basically along and west of Route 79. I think this is Florida 79. It's now northwest of Laird and pretty far north and west of West Bay at the moment. So you can see the trend in this here, offshore of Rosemary Beach. You can see a couple of these little circulation points. They formed a general broad circulation coming across the Rosemary Beach area between Rosemary Beach and Sunnyside. Got a little bit tighter right here as they crossed the inlet. I think that was Phillips Inlet. And then it's now made its way north and east in this area here between Laird and Seminole. But it's a bit more broad at the moment. As you can see, the winds here in green, and then a lot less of the reds, and a lot weaker signal of the reds. Also, not as strong of a tight couplet, which is good news for this area around Seminole. Couple CC contaminations. I think that's getting into the radar contamination area. Haven't seen much in the way of a debris signature at all. Still rotation holding together though. If it would be, it would be likely in this area just south of Seminole Hills. Again, a broad rotation point, but if it is a little tighter, it's right in this area. Higher winds up here towards Laird and Pine Log approaching 79. Also pretty strong winds headed up 79 towards Ebro. And that'll eventually impact the area really along 79. And then high winds headed towards the Panama City area. We'll have to watch the next couple points of rotation here. So still radar indicated tornado. This broad area of rotation somewhat like that. and in general it's headed up towards Pine Log. If it continues to hold together, it may actually head towards Abro, which is currently outside of the tornado warned area. This warning has gotten trimmed back, so if you're along the beaches, Rosemary Beach, Sunnyside, you're no longer in the tornado warning. You are in the larger severe thunderstorm warning. So please continue to take your precautions and stay inside, away from windows. Heavy rain and wind actually over the radar site right now, but headed towards these areas by Miller Bend, Redhead, Miller's Ferry, Bruce. Ebro is about to get into the strongest winds here. Pine Lawn, Seminole Hills, Laird, West Bay. You're getting the winds here just now. And then down from Sunnyside, Gulf Resort Beach, headed towards Florida Beach, and then eventually into the Panama City area is going to be your highest winds. You can see the arc here as it bows out. And then other circulations to watch further out in the Gulf of Mexico, as this is a pretty sizable segment here. Still some broad circulation here by Pine Log and Seminole Hills. You can see the CC contamination isn't really moving with the storm, so that's another sign it's just contamination. But either way, you have this broad area of circulation between Seminole Hills and Pine Log for a radar indicated tornado. So right now, between Seminole Hills and Pine Log Road, that's your area to watch, right in this area here. As we kind of have this broad circulation point. Definitely not as tight as it was when it came ashore, and definitely not as tight even then when it was offshore. So a good trend, but it has held together as a circulation. And then yeah, other points to watch here are probably at least 20 miles offshore. Yep, that's about where the last time we saw circulation. The one that has the tornado warning now, we identified about 25 miles offshore, and then followed that all the way to shore. Another one is about 35 miles or 38 miles offshore. All moving in a general north to northeast pattern as the line moves east. So that would put the threat for those. If those hold together, probably southeast of Panama City, maybe eventually towards the Parker and Lynn Haven area. Still a little early. We'll see if they hold together. The stronger one is this southern one. But again, they don't always hold together. The last couple have, and those have prompted those tornado warnings. This one's probably going to be allowed to expire, as the area of circulation is almost out of the warning area. But still some broad circulation in the Pine Log, Florida area. between Seminole Hills and Pine Log. Not seeing any CC drop, so that's a good sign. But still some gusty winds, especially on the eastern side of this here, and this arc as it continues up towards Ebro. This would be non-tornadic winds, but headed eventually up towards Ebro, Crystal Lake, Vicksburg in Florida, Risotto Beach, and eventually towards Lynn Haven and Panama City Beach. Panama City Beach, it's a matter of minutes here. Gulf Resort Beach has the heavy rain and wind right now. This is all a matter of minutes here into Panama City Beach. And yeah, still a little rotation, weak and broad up towards Pine Log. It'd be along 2296 in this area here. So this is this circulation here, another one to watch as it continues up this way. So again, we got at least two more of these circulations to watch as they move north and east through the northern Gulf of Mexico. Checking the line, still non-severe north of I-10, so that's good. I believe they've trimmed back this tornado watch a little bit too on the western side, and they've definitely trimmed it back in the Pensacola area and Mobile area. Those are all trimmed back. So now your tornado watch area is essentially this area in the Florida Panhandle from Panama City Beach over to Tallahassee, up towards the Albany area, and then as far north right now as Eufaula, and back towards Enterprise and Dothan, although they'll likely trim that part of the watch off too, I could see pretty quickly. You can see the trend on this area rotation coming ashore near Rosemary Beach, and then headed up west to Laird over the Seminole Hills area. And now, if there's anything left, it would be over the Pine Log area. Though it's getting weaker and weaker with every radar scan, so that's a good sign. And then your heavy rain and wind in this bow echo is further east of 79 now, between Ebro and Crystal Lake, headed towards Vicksburg, over West Bay right now, and headed towards the Panama City area in a matter of minutes. You can see there are more circulations back here, so this is an area to watch as it heads up towards the beach. We'll have to see if it holds together or not. So kind of part two of today's stream. I was take a break after the tornadoes in the morning round of storms. Took a break as it died down a little bit in the Florida Panhandle, and then was watching these storms to see how these little circulations would react as they got closer to the Florida Panhandle. We've had a couple now tornado warnings, one near Santa Rosa Beach and then one near Rosemary Beach, as these successive circulations have come ashore. The next one down the line is still out to sea right now in the Gulf of Mexico, but still it's been holding together in the scans we've watched it, so it'll be interesting to see if that continues on that trend. This one here looking better too. Pretty tight couplets right in here and here. The original circulation is weakening as it approaches the Ebro area. And you can see that arc of wind as it came across 79 now, headed towards Crystal Lake and headed towards the Lynn Haven, Panama City Beach area. But much weaker than it was. Get a little bit of a track on these. So these two are moving a little more east than north. The last two circulations were moving more northeast. These ones are moving a little more east. So on that trend line, possibly Parker down to Mexico Beach, down to Port St. Joe, if those hold together, that would be the strongest time that they interact with the coastline. See, it starts here, and then now it's about here. This one here started, we can see back here, and is moving more east. So these are right now moving along the line, not against it. Still have a tornado warning, but the rotation is really out of this warning area and weaker. I would guess they're going to allow this to expire in about 10 minutes. Now we'd be watching these ones here. So moving more east-northeast would actually put it more towards the Panama City, Felix Lake area. It's about 26 miles offshore now. This southern one is even more offshore, about 40 miles offshore. And that would, in general, be headed towards the Mexico Beach area. Which makes sense then that there is a severe thunderstorm warning for tornado possible. That does a good job with the National Weather Service, warning not just the line itself, but warning for the possibility of these circulations continuing to head towards the coastline. So immediately the rotation, I don't see it continuing up in here by Ebro and Miller Bend and Redhead. I just see the line now of storms headed into the Panama City Beach area. Between Panama City Beach and Sunnyside and West Bay is your strongest part of this line headed towards Panama City. And then the line bows out. So this is going to give you pretty high winds in here. A big burst of winds and rain headed towards Panama City Beach and Lynn Haven. And then watching these circulation points offshore. The one in there, the one in there, maybe one down here as well. Back along the Gulf Coast, there's some more storms in the Mobile area. Those are non-severe. They're just going to cause any additional frustration with any flooding issues in low-lying areas. down to Dauphin Island, a pretty strong cell there, non-severe. And then finally the back edge is around the Pascagoula Moss Point area. So a little bit longer, and then it clears out significantly once you get back towards Biloxi, Ocean Springs. This area here in northern southeast Louisiana, north of New Orleans, is going to be drying out for quite a while. A lot of flooding earlier in New Orleans, in the New Orleans suburbs, and as well as the North Shore. A couple tornadoes in the Slidell area and into coastal Mississippi. And then heavy rain, high winds, possibly up to hurricane force, affected the area along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, into Mobile, and into Pensacola with a couple tornado warnings. Still in Pensacola area, heavy rain, moderate rain, some embedded thunder and lightning. That'll start to clear as this batch in Mobile moves east-northeast. And then a larger area of heavy rain, thunderstorms embedded in that. Really heavy rain all the way from the western Atlanta suburbs all the way down 85 and 65. And then back finally clearing Mississippi area into west central Alabama, Thomasville. Some moderate to heavy rain. But your heaviest rain right now is in the Auburn, Alabama area, back down to Eufaula towards Dothan, and then back towards Crestview in Florida, and back towards Evergreen, Monroeville in Alabama. That's a pretty significant, hefty batch of rain. In the severe thunderstorm watch, or in the tornado watch, sorry, only area right now that we have warned is that area for that water spout potential that came ashore. But the area here in Albany, in Georgia, is sub-severe, as well as the areas around Dawson, Sylvester. This is just a heavy line of thunderstorms, and then heavy rain and storms behind it. The area with the severe thunderstorms is south of I-10, basically from Chipley and Ponce de Leon south. That's coming across the areas near Vernon and Wausau in Florida. Eventually headed here towards Crystal Lake, Lynn Haven, Panama City Beach, Felix Lake, Parker, all in the severe thunderstorm warning down to Mexico Beach. And then we can check on rotation potentials. Not much in this area. You can see this whole area arcing out from the original rotation point, but this area here by Crystal Lake, Vicksburg, down towards Panama City Beach, that's your heaviest point of the wind, and the severe weather drops off quite a bit when you get behind that, except for the severe flood threat. A lot of lightning offshore, and still watching this circulation point here. And that's back in the rain right about there. So you're not going to see these. These are not going to be like pretty water spouts that you can take pictures of. They're circulations embedded along the leading edge of this line. But the last couple have tucked back into the rain a little bit. The leading edge is just ahead of that. You can see that kind of there. So you're not going to see these, which means don't go out and try. Especially don't go out and try. Possible other circulations further south. Not seeing anything particularly tornadic imminently around the Panama City Beach area, so that's good. but there are these little embedded notches offshore. This one here, maybe one right in this area. These ones are moving a little more east than north. So they may affect areas that are further south and east than Panama City. But a nasty evening, not a very good beach evening. Good news is seeing some weakening trends on the last couple scans here. So you can see back a couple scans, this couplet was a lot tighter. This is out over the Gulf of Mexico. And then there's another one up here. And even a couple scans back from that, they were still pretty tight. One here and then one here. The northern one is weakened significantly, so that's good. And the southern one, it's still there, but it's broadened out as well. So very good sign there. Yeah, the northern one is especially weakening, and the southern one is getting broad. So that's good to see. The tornado warning expired for the area around Rosemary Beach up towards Pine Log and Abro. That area is no longer tornadic, so that's good to see as well. And then heavy rain and thunderstorms coming across Panama City Beach, headed towards Lynn Haven, Panama City. You can see right now crossing Panama City Beach area with heavy rain, high winds. It's not a good time to be on the beach, but that area is pushing out. Probably your heaviest winds right now are going to be in this arc from around Crystal Lake, close to Lynn Haven, and then Panama City Beach. That area is starting to surge out more. You can see the wind profile somewhat like this. And as this area bulges out, that's going to be your heaviest winds right in there. Still have some embedded circulations down here. And still have a larger severe thunderstorm warning covering the area from Caryville, Ponce de Leon, Chipley, down to Vernon, Wausau, Lynn Haven, Panama City Beach, Parker, down to the area around Mexico Beach. Right now it does not include Port St. Joe and Apalachicola, but wouldn't be surprised to see that continued. Especially areas along and south of I-10, I think have the potential to see the more significant high winds as this whole system continues to march its way across the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Coast. And this area of Florida sticks out a little more into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's what we're watching on right now, is to see how the Florida Panhandle interacts with this incoming line of severe weather. Tornado watch goes through the Tallahassee area and just west of Thomasville, and then up towards the Albany, Georgia area, and even up towards Eufaula Ozark and Enterprise, although I'd expect that this area will be trimmed off the watch momentarily. Once this line comes through, it's significantly less of a severe weather threat. Then it gets more into the flooding threat of heavy to moderate rain persisting for hours there. Still, as we talked about a few minutes ago, still raining and storming in the Mobile area. Just heard some rain and wind here. Bayou La Battery, Pascagoula, Moss Point, finally starting to clear out. The Bayou La Battery has a few more rounds of storms out towards Dauphin Island. And then the Mobile area itself, Chickasha up towards Saraland has a bit of a thunderstorm. None of this is severe, just adding to the flooding. And then, yeah, you can even see on the Mobile radar the heavier rain and storms offshore. Checking other product here. So it's this area I'm most concerned about in the short term. As this next circulation point, the northern one somewhat died off, but the southern one is still going here, and that's headed generally east northeast, somewhat like this. So if it comes ashore, it would come ashore somewhere between Felix Lake and Parker area, and maybe down towards the Mexico Beach area. So that's the area we're gonna have to watch next for any short-term tornadic potential, as well as just the high winds and heavy rain that are coming through Panama City Beach now. Lynn Haven, Panama City Beach right now. Panama City, matter of seconds to minutes here. Same with Lynn Haven. And then up 77 towards Crystal Lake, you're getting the high winds and rain right now. And then just north and east of there towards Vernon and Wausau, up towards I-10, going to be a couple more minutes. This one's still holding together decently tight. It loosened up a little bit a couple scans ago, but there's still a rotation point in here. See the greens headed towards the radar and a little bit of bright reds headed south. It's also in the dog leg of the storm. The next dog leg, I guess. As you can see, the storm goes this way and then this way. So you can see those wind profiles right in here in the velocity scan. Also, you can see a cluster of heavier lightning activity down in here. And then that heavy rain and storms headed across the Panama City Beach area. There's a couple features that we can see looking at the wider view. There's a localized low pressure off of the circulation point that we followed on shore. There's a little broader of a low pressure system up here, and then there's the larger upper level low is back a little further north than that, but towards the Jackson, Mississippi area, somewhat like this. So these are all leading to, and they're headed north and east. These are all kind of leading to the severe weather chances, as well as in the situation up here, kind of lowering some of the severe weather risk in the Montgomery area. And then you have the localized, actually, circulations along the line. Those all kind of create their own micro environments, which is why you have the spin-ups as they come ashore and then dissipate. But they also tend to gust themselves out a little bit, so we've seen a step down as the circulations have kind of come south and east along the I-10 corridor. It cuts off the flow from the Gulf of Mexico, and you can kind of see that happening again. As this area has now come ashore with the original rotation point and its trailing arc here, you can see it's starting to be cut off from the fresh Gulf of Mexico moisture by the next line segment. That's where that other rotation point is. And then this one basically cut off the flow from the line segment north of it, which is why we don't see any severe weather up in this Dothan, Alabama area and north of I-10. So it's somewhat limiting its own instability, but still strong thunderstorms. This segment here is still pretty strong and worthy of a severe weather warning for 60-mile-an-hour winds. Seeing something of interest right here. Let's take a look at this. It looks more interesting on the reflectivity than it does on the velocity. So I saw this weird little notch in here. As you can see here, it looked a little suspicious, but it's generally in an area I didn't expect to see that. So it's just the radar. It's not actually a rotation signature right there. I don't see anything. Actually, speaking of rotation signatures, I don't see much here in the way of any rotation down from the area of Crystal Lake, Lynn Haven, and then down towards Panama City Beach. That's a good sign. There's still this point of rotation offshore in this area here, maybe another one right in here. Those are areas to watch. But overall, a downward trend in those. We'll get another scan and see how this one's doing. In particular, I'm interested in this one. There's a couple other points of rotation further down the line out to sea. Those may skirt the Florida Panhandle here, down by Port St. Joe and Apalachicola. You can see there's another one right in here. Moving generally kind of just northeast of east, somewhat like this. This one's been tracking somewhat like that. So if it comes on shore, it would be somewhere between Parker and Mexico Beach. The next one down, if I had to guess, would be somewhere between Mexico Beach and Port St. Joe and Apalachicola, and this area on 30A by Indian Pass. That's if those circulations hold together. This whole area is rotating a little bit here. A little bit of a couplet by Norham and Holmes Valley, but that's kind of back in this new comma head that's formed. So one of the reasons why this whole area has a tornado possible tag is because of little spin-ups like that. Otherwise, the next one that I'm more concerned about as an active longer term rotation point is this area here, still out to sea, as well as the areas further down. Still want to watch this area here, right by Norham. Yeah, not seeing any CC drop or anything, so that's good. There's a bit of this like shear line and rotation that tightened a little bit there, but that's behind the main line. It's up in this calm ahead. We'll see what it looks like in a scan or two. Kind of shows up here. Kind of three to four scans. Interesting little feature. Otherwise, heavy rain and winds. You can really see the wind profile coming down now near Grantham, Macomb, headed towards Bennett, headed towards Risota Beach, headed towards Lynn Haven, right about Lynn Haven now, Pretty Bayou, and then coming into the Panama City, downtown Panama City right now over Panama City Beach and the lower and upper Grand Lagoon. Watching this little area here by Norham. They did issue a flood warning that now covers the Panama City Beach area. And just checking the CC along this. You can sometimes see the wind. You can see the higher wind too in the CC. It sometimes kicks up a bit of dust, debris, sand as it comes across. It's certainly not seeing that CC contamination like we did earlier when there were the hurricane force winds. You could really see the CC drop on the leading edge of those. But still indicating some high winds coming down here across Lynn Haven, across Panama City and Panama City Beach. And then watching those rotation points out in the Gulf of Mexico. Those points, if they do hold together, one is about 25 to 26 miles offshore, moving in a northeastern direction. Yeah, about 25 miles offshore. The next one down, also kind of moving east-northeast, is about 33 miles from this island here, and then a little bit further, about 38, into the main land mass of the area around Port St. Joe. One further down, that one might miss, which always a good thing, but back up in the immediate Panama City area, high winds coming right over Panama City, Lynn Haven area. And then still a little bit of rotation up there towards Holmes Valley and Norham. Not seeing anything on CC though. That's up in this calm ahead. You can see the. You can really see the whole profile of this, as you have the little rotation signature here, and then the storm's arc south of that. So, interesting feature, and really cool to see the structure of this line as it comes across as a bit of a bow echo here, and then a larger bow echo out to sea right now with its circulation. A couple points of circulation to watch here. Panama City, it's about India. It's a pretty bayou up to Lynn Haven, and then the upper and lower Grand Lagoon. Pretty much right on the doorstep of downtown Panama City. This will be then coming across to Felix Lake, Parker, and Bayview housing, as well as Springfield in Florida. It's right on top of Lynn Haven, right on top of Risotto Beach, and then pretty quickly here into Ecofina and Bennett in Florida, here in the Florida Panhandle. So this is our second stream of the day following this ongoing mesoscale convective complex and system here as it crosses the Florida Panhandle. Came all the way across the Gulf Coast, now affecting the central Florida Panhandle between Panama City, Destin, and headed eventually towards the Tallahassee area. We followed a couple tornadic warned storms for some water spouts that came ashore. Watching a couple of their points of rotation here off in the Gulf of Mexico. They're getting a little closer now. I can see them and see the Florida Peninsula or the Florida Panhandle at the same time now. So a little concerning that they're getting closer. So far, I haven't seen any debris balls or anything. We didn't really see any confirmed tornadic signatures from those two tornado warnings. So that's a good sign. And yeah, you can really see that calm ahead up here. A very small but localized area of rotation just up in that calm ahead south of Vernon. Right by Norham and Holmes Valley area. And you can see how tight that is with the severe storms extending out of it. Now affecting that Wausau area along 77 east of Crystal Lake, headed towards Fountain. This is all severe warned thunderstorms headed towards the US 231 as it heads down towards Panama City and Lynn Haven. So if you're on 231 from the I-10 area, Alford, down through Fountain and then on to Panama City, that is not a fun drive right now. North of I-10 is where the warning cuts off. So Chipley, you're in the severe thunderstorm warning. Caryville, still in the severe thunderstorm warning. And that goes all the way down towards Mexico Beach. The line has slowed its forward progress. So earlier it was moving at about 60 miles an hour to the east. It's not moving nearly that. Still being warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds, but it's moving now east at 25. So a lot slower momentum towards the east, which means earlier they could advance a severe thunderstorm warning far out. They're not doing that as much now because of this stalled eastward progress. More storms over here by Port St. Joe. But it's this little area here that we need to watch as it gets closer to Port St. Joe, and as that area gets closer to the coastline. On reflectivity, this area is looking a lot less impressive, so that's a good sign. You can see the velocity, you can see the wind arcing out as it comes across Panama City Beach and Lynn Haven, now headed towards Parker. Still watching this area here. And this area here. Good news is I don't see anything imminently tornadic along this line here at the moment, from Wausau down through Lynn Haven and Panama City. There's not as many dog legs as there was earlier, so it's good to see that. I think in general this line has been in a weakening trend as it's come across from the Destin area, Crestview, towards the Panama City area here. We really just have to watch a couple of these embedded circulations that are right now offshore. So one here and one up in here, which is I think right in about there, and then right in this area. This one's looking a little less connected to the line, and the line is breaking up a little bit. You can see it's not as connected in this area as it was earlier, so that's a good sign as well. Part of that is because the northern part has surged out a little bit. But even this part of the line is looking a little less vigorous than it was earlier. The lightning has come down a little bit, although there's still a decent amount of lightning out here, which indicates this is a pretty strong cell out in the Gulf of Mexico, and its rotation point is right about in there. So that's one to watch as it comes towards Port St. Joe. The other one we were watching it was up in here, and yeah, it's starting to become disconnected from the southern side of that line of storms. Panama City, Parker, Felix Lake, up to Lynn Haven, you're getting the worst of this line of storms at the moment, and then up towards Wausau and I-10 towards Chipley is in a pretty good thunderstorm as well. Along the Route 231, US 231 corridor, Alford is just outside of the warning, but you're going to get some heavy rain, wind, and storm as this area of wind pushes up from Wausau towards Alford. Checking my audio just to make sure it's still on. Just knocked the mic over. Yeah, long and south of I-10 is your most severe parts of the storm. still something going on out here to see, but it's a lot less organized than it was a while back. You can see here it was a lot more organized. Now it's a lot more loose and scattered. Maybe it's a broader circulation, and it's becoming disconnected. If it comes ashore, we'll see what it does, but it'd be coming towards that Parker Felix Lake area. The other stronger circulation that's been further south is up in here. It's been generally coming towards the Port St. Joe, and maybe as far north as Mexico Beach, although it might be further south than that. So we'll hold on here for the next couple minutes and see what the trends look like for these few storms. It's definitely looking healthier earlier. You can see it here and then it separates out. When it was part of the cluster storms, and now it's looking a lot looser. This area here is still staying pretty strong. Nothing tornadic up towards Vernon, Wausau, back arcing down to Lynn Haven and Panama City. Do have to watch little notches, but they seem to be behaving themselves. Still something on the tail end of this, but it's not looking as impressive as it was a couple scans ago. And even back a few more scans, like in here, and further back, even back further past the radar was looking better. This one's held on the southern mode. Actually, maybe a couple of them have held on, but there's that one to watch there as it heads up towards the Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach. And then this part of the line back here towards Felix Lake and Parker. Otherwise, heavy rain, high winds coming through Lynn Haven, Panama City, up towards Alford and Wausau right now. We'll see here as this gets close to the edge of the warning. Severe thunderstorm warning for Fountain and Chipley and just west of Alford. We'll see if they continue the warning like they have in the past. And yeah, you can see a few more circulations out to sea. Eventually the circulations get further south where they're probably not going to be much of a threat towards even the Florida Panhandle. And the good news is, like we just talked about, is there is a downward trend in the intensity of this line. Still a bit of rotation out here. This is offshore of Felix Lake and Panama City. But it's not as strong as it was. And then the other rotation point is further offshore of the Mexico Beach, Port St. Joe. That one's the stronger of them right now. That's generally headed up this direction, and that one's generally headed that direction. So we'll see what happens when they interact with the coastline here, like we did with the last couple. Let me check one of my other products and see if I got any better view of this. Yeah, I think that's our best look right here. So one circulation here, headed generally in the direction of Port St. Joe and Mexico Beach. Other circulation looking a little less impressive than it did a few scans ago, but that's generally headed towards the area southwest of Parker, Felix Lake, along 98. Trying to see if there's other settlements up here. But alright, let's see again what the Weather Service does. We now have this storm approaching with a circulation that's held together somewhat. Yeah, weaker than it was. So that's a good thing. But it's in this little area here. You can kind of see the storm hooks around a little bit. Not like doesn't look like a classic supercell, but really all the storms today haven't. They've been dog legs in the line and little circulation points. One weak one there, but it's really behaving itself too. Otherwise, I don't see any new circulation points developing like we did earlier today, but this is coming across Panama City with heavy wind and rain all along the 231 corridor from I-10 south. But it's this area to watch here. Yeah, it's back in this little hook cell. As it's separated out a little bit, the two segments have separated. This one's going more east still. This one's going a little more northeast. Somewhat like that. And then this one's back here, somewhat like that. A couple other points to watch, but these are way further offshore. And they're likely going to be south of the Panhandle anyway, so we'll give these a couple more scans. You can see the circulation here. It's held together. Not as impressive as it was a few minutes ago. This one has held together, but also not quite as impressive as it was. So good news is a downward trend, it looks like, for both of these circulation points. But there's still something up in there. And then a downward trend in severity for this whole line, so that's a good news. We'll see what happens up in this 231 corridor if they reissue a severe thunderstorm warning for the areas east of there. Otherwise, a flood threat along the Florida Panhandle tonight, and also into southwestern Georgia and southern Alabama. Definitely a flood threat, especially from Mobile east to Tallahassee on I-10. If you find yourself encountering a flooded roadway, please turn around, don't drown. Especially at night, it's even more dangerous to try and cross a flooded roadway because you can't see the bottom. You don't know how deep it is. You don't know if the water has washed away the roadbed. So it's very dangerous. It's harder to tell the depth. So please don't drive through flooded roadways. Take the longer way home. It's better to get home and get there safely than not at all. So I think the plan will be here as we watch these, just these next couple circulations because they're a little closer to shore. We watch them come across, and then if the downward trend in severity continues like it should, we'll call it a night for this stream. Likely be back tomorrow. It looks like not only is there going to be a severe threat for Florida, especially in the morning, but it looks like tomorrow afternoon into the evening, potential for severe weather in the Ohio River Valley again, from central Kentucky up through eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and parts of West Virginia. So that area from Charleston, West Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, up through Pittsburgh, and even possibly as far north as Cleveland and Erie, Pennsylvania, could be seeing severe weather as far as all hazards are possible. Tornadoes, hail, high winds. So we'll see. It looks like there could be a couple modes with eventually another big mesoscale convective system kind of taking hold. This is looking a lot less impressive. It's still in there, but it's looking a lot less impressive. It's kind of tucked up right in this area here. So not much is in there. It's gotten kind of dislocated from some of the better environment. Still surging wind north of the Panama City area along 231 up towards Fountain, and now approaching Alford and I-10 231 interchange, Cottondale, and even as far north as Jacob City. Seeing some pretty good wind out of this. Especially 231 right here, as that part of the storm's gusting out a bit. Alright, here we go. Let's again, it's not as impressive as it was a couple scans ago, but it's still in here. It's tucked up right about in here in this little notch. Southwest of Felix Lake and southwest of Parker. The other circulation point, it's also looking a bit more broad and weak, but it's up in this area here, southwest of Mexico Beach. Another circulation, maybe two of them further south. They all do seem to be in a downward trend. So that's a really good sign. Even this storm here on the last scan or two had a little bit of an appendage, and now it's a lot weaker of a signal, and it's a lot flatter of a storm base. So we'll see what the interaction with the land and the coastline can do. Still a lot of lightning down in this segment of the storm. This is lightning every 15 minutes. This is the last 15 minutes of lightning history. I like it to be on 30 minutes of lightning history. I'll bump it up a little bit. I had to turn it down. There was so much lightning in the storms this morning that you couldn't even see much of the radar. It was completely covered with the white lightning symbols. So right now, that's a good sign that the lightning is coming down. I can turn it back to the 30-minute history. You can see the pattern a little better. So this is probably your strongest part of this line. It's now over the Gulf of Mexico, but headed towards Port St. Joe. And then still pretty strong winds up in the Panama City area, and watching this little area rotation southwest of Felix Lake. It's still there, but it's weaker than it was. Again, these are not the pretty water spouts that you're going to take pictures of on the beach, and you shouldn't do that anyway, especially if they're coming towards the beach. But sometimes, especially in the Florida Panhandle, there are times where there's water spouts way out to sea that aren't actually coming towards you, that some people have seen really cool pictures of, and didn't threaten their own safety. But these are not those. It's going to be in the rain, and it's already raining and storming and windy in the Panama City area, so you're not going to see something like this coming. Just looking along the rest of this line, yeah, I don't see anything imminently tornadic along the rest of the line, along the 231 corridor. Just a couple of these circulations out to sea are the ones to watch here, and we'll see what happens as they come ashore between Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach, and the Parker, Panama City area. But both those circulations not looking as impressive as they were. See what they look like from the other Tallahassee radar. They're still in there, but that's a bit on the edge of its radar. So this is still the best looking one. This is a heavy cell, even outside of the waterspout threat. This is a heavy cell with a lot of lightning headed towards Port St. Joe. And this whole area, 60-mile-an-hour wind, severe thunderstorm warning, tornado possible, just in case there's any little spin-ups along here. There hasn't been as much of that lately, so that's been a good sign. But I guess that tornado possible also covers this area on the southern end of the warning from Mexico Beach up through Panama City. Here's your rotation point, still holding together, still offshore. In general, it's about 9 miles offshore. Maybe a little less if you take it from this point. Somewhere about 6 to 9 miles offshore. It's definitely more broad than it was, so that's a very good sign. And you don't see as many of the bright reds and greens coming together. So that's a good sign as well. That other circulation point also looking weaker. There's two of them. There's one right in here, also looking weaker, and then there's a southern one right here. Those have now progressed, and a lot more broad and flat right in here. The southern one still looks decent, but then this one up here is also very broad. So downward trend in all of these. You can get a sense. Also some strong wind. So regardless of the waterspout threat coming ashore, there's strong wind down in here. Particularly this area of the line that's bowing out a little bit towards Port St. Joe. That's going to be a stronger part of the line for the wind. This area around the heaviest concentration of lightning is kind of surging out a bit as that comes towards Port St. Joe. Also some heavy wind up here towards Mexico Beach coming ashore. And then still a bit of rotation just offshore of Parker and Felix Lake. This area here near, Felix Lake and Parker, just offshore. Still kind of a broad area rotation. It's come down pretty significantly. But pretty heavy wind coming towards Mexico Beach right now, and then coming in towards the Port St. Joe area eventually. Yeah, these all look, they're still in here, but they look a lot weaker than they did. It's a really good sign. Also, you can even see up in here, there's a lot less of the reds and oranges, more of the yellows. So that's a good sign as well. I'm still watching this area cautiously. You can see a little bit brighter greens going that way, and then a little bit brighter reds going that way. So there's still an area of rotation. It's more broad than it was. It was definitely looking better back in this area and back further. It's kind of bowling balled around out in the Gulf of Mexico, now coming ashore towards Felix Lake. Otherwise, the wind profile now is pushing out of the original severe thunderstorm warning. So areas along and now east of Route 231, east of Fountain, Betts, Compass Lake, Round Lake, Alford, Steel City, Cottondale, right along and east of that is where you're going to have your heaviest winds, especially 231 and east on Highway 20, south and east of Fountain. That area is bowing out a little bit. And then that arcs down along 231 into the Panama City Beach area. This one's getting a little closer to shore, so we'll see another scan or two what it does. There's this point of rotation here looking a bit weaker than it did, and then there's the southern one also looking a bit weaker. In general, those are headed towards the Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach area. And in general, this one is headed ashore around the Felix Lake area. We'll see here in a matter of minutes, really, in the next scan or two, what those look like. Checking my other. They don't look as healthy on my other products either. This area rotation is near or offshore of Beacon Beach and Tyndall Air Force Base. Is also up in this area. It'd be this area right in here. It's still a mile or two offshore, so we'll see what happens when it technically makes its landfall, what the National Weather Service wants to do with it. And then there was a couple other rotation points further south. The one on the northern end looks a lot less vigorous. The southern one closer to Port St. Joe looks a little healthier, but still weaker than it did a few scans ago in the radar. So I think we're really just watching these two areas up here by Parker, and then down here towards Port St. Joe. It's kind of in this little calm ahead area here that extends down. We're quickly seeing a downward trend in the severe weather, and even up here towards Fountain, a lot less of the reds and even purples at some point, and now we're more into the yellows and oranges. So I don't even know if this warning is going to even continue. It expires in 6 minutes. So we'll revisit that in a few minutes when it expires. And then we'll just monitor this little area of rotation by Felix Lake and just offshore and see what the National Weather Service does with that. But yeah, this area on the south end is looking less impressive as well. And the middle point of rotation is almost gone. And you can see how the line is now broken up a little bit. It's again kind of feeding off of the instability further south, and that's been cutting off the severity of the line segment to the north. So it's essentially stair-stepping itself down as one of the southern flanks of the line surges a little further ahead, and then the northern section gets cut off. That's what this section did to the section that's up by Dothan. That's all non-severe up here. It got cut off by its southern flank. And now that same trend is happening. That doesn't mean that through the evening there could be further severe weather in northern Florida and along the Florida Panhandle towards the Tallahassee area. However, the trend has been downward in both the high winds and the tornado threat. So that is a good sign here. Alright, let's see here. See this area of rotation? It's still out there. It's about to come on shore. In this area by Bayview, Housing, and Felix Lake and Parker. But if there was a water spout, it'd be right up in this area here, where we have the bright greens arcing up like this, and then the reds somewhat arcing down. So somewhere in this area here. But that trend has gone down, so that's a good sign. A couple of their rotation points further south, but they also seem to be less vigorous than they were. You can see how that one was a better couplet a few scans ago, and even a better couplet a few scans before that. And same way with the ones on the southern end. Better couplet there than it is now. So a good weakening trend here. About 3 minutes, I guess 6:45 Central Time. This is going to expire. We'll see if it gets reissued, but the severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-an-hour winds and tornado possible. And yeah, we were watching these little circulation points that have broadened and weakened as they've headed for the Florida Panhandle between Port St. Joe, Mexico Beach, and Panama City. Overall, you can see a lot less of the bright greens. So that's been a good trend also beyond the circulation points, but also the high wind. Still a bit in here. You can see it hooking back like that. Still right offshore of the area around Felix Lake. If there is a water spout, it'd be right in that area. And I don't know if we'd see, just like the other ones, probably wouldn't see anything on the CC since it's over the water at the moment. Same with anything else further down the line, such as that area here. A couple other circulations down here, but they're, yeah, on a downward trend too, so that is a good sign. And then back up, looking at this area here by Felix Lake and Bayview Housing. Checking out the reflectivity as this comes across Panama City area. And then comes across Lynn Haven. Still a bit of rotation south and offshore Felix Lake here. Let's watch this another couple scans or two. A bit of green and a bit of red pairing with the radar site. At the very least, you're going to get a pretty good gust of wind. This is gusting out a little bit. I think that's what's happening. You can kind of see it's bowing out a little bit like that. So at the very least, you're going to get a gust of wind down in this area. Looking a little closer, that is an area Felix Lake, Beacon Beach, and Tyndall Air Force Base, all up in this area here. So it appears like they've let the severe thunderstorm warning expire. It's now 6:46 Central Time. Still have some gusty winds and a few potential circulations down here towards Port St. Joe. Those are going to be a bit more intense than the line up here. This line has definitely weakened as it's coming out towards Alpha and along I-10. Still not a fun drive, but a lot less severe than it was. And then I just want to watch this last little part of this storm come on shore. We'll see if it held any intensity of its rotation point. I don't think it's going to, but since we're already on the stream and watching it, it's good to just watch it anyway. And yeah, likely be on tomorrow afternoon, covering some severe weather threat in the Ohio Valley, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania. Looks like enhanced risk by the Storm Prediction Center for all hazards. And I think last I checked, a 10% risk for tornadoes in the enhanced area. This little area rotation does seem to be on a downward trend. Checking it on another product as well, and I don't see as much of the combination as there was earlier. There's two little areas. One now is basically onshore by Felix Lake, and the other one is just south of there. So somewhat in areas like this. We give these two areas a couple scans, and then if they're still sub-tornadic and sub-severe, we'll call it. And right now, I think that is the first time in a while there's been no severe thunderstorm warnings. So that is good. This area out by Port St. Joe and the waters off Apalachicola still do have a special marine warning for water spouts and wind gusts within excess of 50 knots. So be aware there are some other circulation points. These could skirt the Florida Panhandle later in the evening. And there are some more storms back offshore that could come ashore eventually. So just because we go off the air and go off the stream doesn't mean that the severe weather threat completely goes away. Still some hefty storms back in the Mobile area, east of Mobile now, towards Bay Minette and Loxley. Those are all non-severe. Pretty hefty cell offshore of Dauphin Island is one to watch. Any of these offshore here, especially like this one, this cluster, and this cluster, if they make it onshore into the Florida Panhandle, that could be an issue for more severe weather. But they're running into the issue that they're going to be into more stable air behind the leading line of storms. And let's just check what that looks like from. So from the Tallahassee radar, not looking as impressive either. But there is that little rotation point right here. And then from the Tallahassee radar, the storm in Panama City looks a lot less impressive. You can see it kind of had a burst of brighter greens. That's died off. You can kind of follow that as it's come ashore. This is the closer radar site. And yeah, you can see those greens and reds have definitely died down and broadened out. As that's come ashore. A lot less of the bright greens down in this area west of Port St. Joe. So definitely a downward trend. Mexico Beach, Port St. Joe in line for some strong thunderstorms. The strongest is likely going to be this area around Indian Pass and the barrier island out here. Between 30A and 30, and maybe over towards 9 Mile and Apalachicola. On the very tip of this, that's going to be your strongest wind and strong storm potential, as this segment here heads east northeast towards Apalachicola. But it's on a downward trend too. Still some weak rotation over here. But it is starting to broaden out. As it's crossing that area by Tyndall Air Force Base and Felix Lake. Especially the bright greens that were up in here by Felix Lake are a lot weaker. Still bit of energy right in this area here. Or just east of that. But even that looks like it's coming down. There could be some weak water spouts offshore, but I don't see anything that's really standing out, which is a good sign. I think we're going to call it. It's 6:53 Central Time. We have no tornado warnings, no severe thunderstorm warnings. Please take these flash flood warnings seriously. And the tornado watch currently that's in the Florida Panhandle expires in about an hour. So we'll have to see about that. Severe weather potential does continue overnight and into tomorrow morning for the northern parts of Florida. But again, the tornado threat goes down, as well as the hurricane force wind threat goes down. More of a general threat for severe thunderstorms that exists overnight and into tomorrow morning. We'll turn our attention to this area with a bit of an enhanced risk in kind of this area here. So some of the same areas that were in an enhanced risk earlier this month are kind of back in it now. Let me see if there's any updates. From the SPC. Just a couple minutes ago, the SPC did say that the severe thunderstorm risk has diminished in the near term for that Florida Panhandle, the area around Panama City to Apalachicola. However, they're still watching another cluster of storms that could develop and organize near and offshore of the coast this evening. And if that does move ashore, that could create a more of a severe weather risk later this evening, and certainly continue the flood risk. Tomorrow, the severe threat is going to be further north. And let me take a look here at the day 2 outlook. Yeah, the enhanced area, the slight area, is this area from northern and eastern Kentucky all the way up actually to the area around Cleveland and Erie. So this area is under basically a slight risk of severe weather. And then the enhanced risk is really from basically the tri-state area in between Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, up through the area around Parkersburg in West Virginia, up towards Wheeling, and then up maybe close to the Akron area, and down towards Athens, Ohio. So that's more of your enhanced risk in this area here. So we will likely be on another stream tomorrow afternoon and evening as storms develop down in northern Kentucky and kind of move in a northeastern pattern through the enhanced risk, as well as maybe some development along the Ohio and Indiana line, and that moves more eastern in that direction. So that is, I think, it for now. Thanks for watching, and have a safe evening, especially if you're in the Florida Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast. Have a safe evening. And yeah, the severe risk has diminished quite a bit. Still watching a few places here near Port St. Joe, but even that has come down, and hopefully that downward trend continues. But yeah, have a safe evening. It's been a rough day along the Gulf Coast and in Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and now into Georgia a little bit. So stay safe, everyone.